Oh, by the way, in case I haven't mentioned this, I'm Ronnie Walter. Sometimes I forget to introduce myself, but anyway. Oh, hey everybody. Today we're going to do a really cute and sweet Father's Day card. And what I've done before you arrived is I just wrote the word Dad on this piece of paper. And I traced it with my little light box onto this watercolor paper, which is Blick Studios cold press watercolor paper. It's my favorite. It's got a nice smooth surface, but not hot press. It takes watercolor well, and it takes our marker well. So that is what we're going to paint today and use some line work. And that's not the pen I'm using. I will be using this Faber-Castell Pitt art pen, which is waterproof. Very important if you're doing line and watercolor. And it is a 0.1 size. It's pretty thin, which I love. I have an eraser. And mostly I'm going to use this number 10 round brush that has a decent point on it. It's getting a little wobbly. And then later on, I think I might be using this 8, but I'm not sure. But it's both rounds. I'm also, for this project, going to use my Prang Oval 16s. They have a very nice little palette. We have a limey green, a lemony yellow, this Kelly green. I'm going to be using a couple of these sort of more teal tones and the purple because we're going to do a really pretty gradation. So I'm just using these. You can use any paints that you have. And if there are better ones than these, knock yourself out. If you don't have anything of this scale, you know, this is not very expensive and it's a great way to get started. We're not necessarily looking for archival paint for a little greeting card, a Father's Day card. Although I have to tell you, after my father passed away, we found an envelope with all of the cards I ever made him. So it was archived over a while, but they're not museum quality. Let's just put it that way. But they were very lovely and sentimental, and it was a big moment in my life to find those after he was no longer with us. Okay, on to painting. So what I'm also going to do here is I have an inexpensive spray bottle. You should always, when you're going to start with your watercolors, no matter what kind you have, it's a good idea to spritz them with some water to get them activated because we want to know that they are watery because they're watercolors. So I'm going to get started. Oh, one more thing. When you are working with watercolors, almost every paint set comes with some sort of palette. This is the lid that is also the palette. And it's best to work from the pile of paint you have, however you get it, to the palette, to the paper. So it's a two-step system here. What you are looking for is if you go right from the paint to the paper, like we did when we were kids, you end up with gummy, icky stuff, paint that's not going to spread particularly. And then you can mix colors in here, and you can also make enough to that is going to smooth all the way across the area that you want to paint. If you go from here to there, trust me, don't do that. You can also buy just standalone little plastic palettes at the dollar store or any craft store, and those work great. Okay, I'm going to get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, I want to get my paint back over, my pencil back over here. I'm going to get my paper back over here, and I'm going to start painting. So I have a clean water jug, and then I have a dirty water jug where I swish out my paint. I also have some tissues, which I prefer using as opposed to paper towels. They're very absorbent. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to grab some of this yellow. And with less expensive paints, you kind of need more of the pigment. So you want to make sure that you have enough just pigment to get some saturation. So I also have a little scrap paper of the same paper that I'm using, and that's a way to test your paints and to make sure that they are doing their thing. Okay, I think I have enough yellow. And then I'm going to go to this more limey green, and I want to make a nice I just want to make a nice lime green. So I'm going to use a fair amount of paint in there. Try not to contaminate your paints, but you can always take a little sponge and wipe them out if you do. Okay, First thing I'm going to do is get this big hair off the end of my brush. And then I'm, with deliberation and bravery and confidence, I'm just going to lay down a stripe of this lime green. Just a nice stripe. I don't want this to end up looking stripy. I want it to look like a gradation. So each time I'm just going to add more color. I'm going to add a little bit of this lime green, or the Kellier green, into here. And then I can test it over here to see if there's enough. Yes, there's enough contrast there, maybe a tiny bit more. And then I'm going to come in right next to that one, that stripe, and put another one in. And let them do their thing together, let them bleed. Now the other thing you can do, your brush, once you wipe it off, acts as a little vacuum cleaner. You can vacuum up the excess there, okay? And then we're going to, what I want to do is, I'm going to start over here in a new pan and do all Kelly green. I don't know if it's called Kelly green, but that's what I'm calling it. And then you can see the difference. So I'm wanting to just keep going with my greens. They're eventually going to turn blue. So you want to work somewhat fast and keep that moving. And you just have a really nice, you know what, I'm going to add a little bit of that other green in there. I wanted a more yellowy look. Okay. So the other thing we want to do, because I want this to look like a gradation only interrupted by the letters, I'm going to add a little bit to the edge of this so it looks like it's one big stripe. Okay. So from here, I have that Kellyish green. Kellyish. I have a friend named Kelly. Sometimes she's very Kellyish. Okay. And then there's a darker teal kind of color. It's a little gray for my taste, but for this project, I think it's going to do the trick. Let me go right into that. From here, I'm just going to commit to a stripe there. And let these two marry up a bit there. Okay. Now, a lot of these little edges, we're going to take care of that when it comes to, that eraser out of the way. When it comes to our line work, we're going to take care of some of those edges. Also, we're not going to be worried about those little edges because that's what makes it cute and watercolory. Okay, now I'm going to start into a blue. And in this palette of this Prang, there's a blue. Here, I'll show you. It's kind of a phthalo blue. That's a little thick for what we're doing, but it's really a lovely blue. So I'm going to add that to this green. So you're basically just adding to what you already have. And so I may have been talking too long. Nope, this is still bleeding into the next one. And we're just going to pull that down so it looks like a stripe. Well, that's looking pretty. Now, I'm going to get rid of any of the green that's in that phthalo-ish blue. And I'm going to get all of that color, just pure out of the pot. It is really a lovely color. And I'm going to lay that down. Oops, hand slipped. And in this case, I am leaving that little corner so I can bring the next color in. We have kind of a hairy edge here, so I'm going to use a little clean water to see if I can soften that a little bit. Again, once we put the line work on, you're not going to really see that much. It's a little funky. We'll be all right. And then I want to go, there's a blue here that is a much truer blue, kind of an aquamarine. And we're going to test that against this. I want to make sure that there's enough differentiation. Differentiation, that's a lot of syllables. Yeah, so we're going to bring that down into that corner of the A. and then start up again over here. So we're going from that limey green into this blue. So that is really, oops, let's, and then the last color I want to do is, I want to do more of this blue, and then I want to add, there's a really nice purple in this palette. Over here, there's a really nice purple. It's kind of grape Kool-Aid-like, and it gives a really nice, between that blue and that purple, it's a really nice violet color. Ooh, 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 that's pretty. Okay. And I need a little more intensity. I can already tell. All right, we're committing. Ooh, that's going to dry really pretty. And then the stripe on the bottom, this looks a little mottled right now, but as it dries, it's going to dry much flatter. I freaked out the first time I saw that, but it does dry flat. It's all good. No need to panic. Okay, now here's a little trick. So I want to make this, I'm just going to get rid of that tiny little pencil line there. I am going to make a stripe, and I'm going to use this purpley color. And I suggest another piece of paper to absorb the excess, and also I don't want to get my my pad that's under here wet. So just drag that along. Use the point of your brush to drag along that pencil line, which you may not be able to see, but I did about half, I think it's half an inch. Okay. So now we're going to let this dry. Now it's time to go have a cup of coffee or something and let this really dry. And then we'll finish it off with a line work. So hope you enjoyed that. And I will be back. See you then, kids. Okay, while this was drying, I made another creative decision. And what I want to do is on this this little border I put on, I want to add a little stripe on there. So I'm coming in with my number 8 round brush, and I'm going to go back to that little purpley blue color that I have. Where's my cheat sheet? Oh, there it is. And I want to make sure that it's contrasty enough that I get what looks like a stripe on there. I think I'm going to add a little more of this ultramarine-ish blue and a little more of that purple just to give it a little more depth. And I'm just going to come in and hit it with a wide stripe, just like that. Just make little rectangles. And I'm going to trust that this is going to work out. But if you like, of course, you could make marks to make sure that you end up in the right place. I kind of have this loose attitude toward, sure, my stripes will work out. And I think they're going to. Normally, I would kind of put a square in the middle and then work my way out is probably the most loose mathematical way to do that without measuring, because, measuring. Ha. Okay. Sometimes I think when I measure, I get too tight. So sometimes I just don't. Okay, so we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to start in on our line work. Okay. As I mentioned in the beginning, oh, by the way, in case I haven't mentioned this, I'm Ronnie Walter. Sometimes I forget to introduce myself. But anyway, I'm Ronnie Walter. I'm an artist. And I love teaching people how to make lighthearted and cute art. So here we are, making lighthearted and cute art for our dads. Okay, so I'm using this Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen, waterproof, 0.1 size. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to just outline the letters and try not to put my big old thumb in the wet paint that's down here. But let's just start, and we're just starting. I'm going to make a commitment to that letter. And, you know, sometimes making curves is kind of tricky. So sometimes that first line around, I will not make it solid. And I'll show you why that works later as well. So I want to have a rough line, and I'll do the inside of this D. Now, let me tell you something else. That's really a wonky line. I notice people drawing online, and they often hold their pen like this, their pen or their brush like this, with their thumb straight out against the utensil that they're using. And I find this technique to be really, the potential is there to have a really tight line. So with this sort of more whimsical drawing, I think it works best if you have a lighter hand, that your hand isn't cramped up. Sometimes I see people holding their pen so tight that they're literally white knuckling it. And I don't think that gives you the kind of loose, casual line that we're looking for. If you are in the practice of drawing like this and it works for you, cool. If you feel like you're not getting that looseness that you want, either in your brushwork or in line work, then practice. Practice holding your hand in a looser way, kind of how they taught us to write when we were kids, and to hold the pen so that you have some movement in both your arm and your wrist. Just a little tip. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my A and just keep that really loose. I'm just going to go around. I'm going to add some patterning after this. It's just going to be cute, cute, cute. And, you know, I don't mind overhang. That does not bother me one bit. Sometimes it gets a little wonky, but it doesn't bother me. Okay. So that's all going well. Oops, top of the A. And then our second D. It's always tricky when you're using the same letter twice when there's only 3 letters. Like, are they going to look alike? And they may or they may not. So I am not doing a full line around. That's why I like doing this sort of second line technique, because making that, oh, that's really wonky. Yeah, must have had too much coffee. Okay, there's that. And I'm just going to bring that around a little bit, give it a little thickness. Okay, I think that looks cute. Now, let's talk about, oh, I'm not going to do that yet. Okay, got to do the inside of the D. Okay, now I'm going to come in and start to draw inside the letters. This is where you got to get over your nerves. You're just going to make a commitment. So when I'm going to do a pattern like this one, I'm going to do a little double stripe. I usually start in the middle, like I told you you should do on when you're doing a stripe like this. I'm going to start in the middle, and then I can work my way out from either side. So I'm just going to draw a line down roughly through the middle of that letter. I'm going to make it an obvious double line. And I'm going to go straight down. You can certainly use a pencil and a ruler if you need a little bit of guidance to where those lines are going to land. I think that's fine. That looks cute. And then on this one, I'm just going to do some little, just a little patterny squiggle. I always liked those in the 80s, those little, some of the patterns were these funny little squiggles. And I always liked those. They were in outlandish colors like peach and yellow and hot pink. And I loved that look. Okay, just a cute little pattern. And then on this one, I'm going to do a chevron. So again, I'm going to roughly find the center of this D and do a chevron. And then I'm going to make a wider stripe there. Again, feel free to use pencil lightly because you want to be able to erase it. And I'm going to come back in here. And you know, if you need to turn your paper over to make sure that it works, that's fine too. We have very loose rules here at on this channel. I think that looks really cute. And then I'm going to add one more embellishment, which is to just stripe this chevron really loosely. I don't know what it is about making marks on paper but it has been in my DNA since the day I landed on this earth. No, I should say from the day someone put a utensil in my hand that made marks. I was like, what? I can draw with this thing? And I have not lost that enthusiasm for making marks. Very soothing. Okay, I think that's really cute. All right, this is dry enough that we're gonna go and I'm gonna put a line across and then I'm gonna put some little stitches. Because when we're drawing cute stitches, they're really cute. Okay, so like I said, drawing a straight line, if we were trying to draw a straight line across here, it would be really frustrating and you might really feel like you messed up the card. You never will. Okay, yes you can. All right, so what I tend to do when I'm trying to draw a straight line is to make a line at the point where it starts to feel uncomfortable, and then you put a couple dots, make them sort of uneven. It's a very intentional kind of line. So there you go. You've just made a line that does not look contrived. It doesn't look like it's wonky. And then because I like cute stitches, I'm just going to put a row of stitches across. And this, again, very satisfying to draw stitches. Okay, so now we have this cute little stitch line on the bottom that just kind of, I don't know, kind of makes it look like a shirt or something. Okay, now, as far as the sentiment goes, you can, I like to kind of, when I'm doing something particularly personalized, like say, if I could send this to my dad, I would think about what are the things that we say to each other. Is it something funny we always say? Or if he were to call me today, what would I say to him? How would I answer the phone? And more than likely, if my dad called me, I would probably say, oh, hey, Dad. And then what I would do is, so I make these little cards. I don't always just make cards. Sometimes I make frameable artwork. But I just paste these down on a folded cardstock. So in this case, I would fold this down. I'm going to write, oh, hey, Dad, on the front. And on the inside, I would say, I miss you, or I'm so glad you're my father. You know, that's where you'd put your sentiment. But a little, excuse me, a little opening of what you would say to your dad. Conjure that up. Like, hey, Dad, something like that, what you say. Think about if you answered a phone call from him. Okay, so this is why I like this gridded board. And frankly, I bought this at a thrift store. My favorite place to buy art supplies. And so what I'm doing is I'm sort of eyeballing where I want the hey dad. And then I can go use these, this grid to figure out where I want that line. So I'm just doing a really, really light line. And I'm just going to write, oh, hey. And since, oh, hey, Dad. And then I'm going to come in and do the line mark on that. And again, just an easy hand. I'm a little bit shaky today. Could be the coffee consumption. I love me some coffee. Okay, kind of screwed that up, but I think I can make it work because I'm going to come in and darken up the edge of these. Oh, hey. I made it look kind of like an R, so I'm going to round that out. There, still cute. Maybe I'll do that here. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Not perfect, but we're not going to worry about that. Again, generally on, if something you're making you're going to give to someone else, they're not looking at like the little funny stuff that you might do. They're looking at the whole essence of the card. They're looking at the fact that you painted this, that you took the time to make something for them. And so I'm just going to come in and lightly erase that. And whenever you have this marker, use a light hand and also wait at least 30 seconds to finish your erasing. So there we have it. The next thing I would do is I would glue it onto a folded card, and I would write something lovely inside. Here's the other thing. When you're putting it on another piece of paper, if you screw up the inside, you can redo it. You know, sometimes when you buy a folded card and you paint on the outside and then you write on the inside and you're like, okay, well, that looks terrible, or I misspelled a word or something like that. That's why I like being able to, if indeed I didn't like this, I could pull it off here. I could pull it off and put it on another card. But that's not the case here. So anyway, here is a darling little card for your dad that does not involve golf or fish or boats. And I am so happy you're here. If you are so inclined and like what I'm doing here, I'd love it if you liked and subscribed. For I'm intending to put out a new video every week, and this one I'm sneaking in an extra one. You never know when that's going to happen. So if you want to be notified, hit the bell. And I didn't mean to click in your ear there, but I did already. So anyway, have a very creative day, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.